I'm 77 years old, and I'm sitting in a small room that still doesn't quite feel like it belongs to me. Most of my life feels that way now, like I was just renting it from someone else and never realized it until the lease was almost up. There are boxes stacked in the corner. Things I don't remember buying. Photos of people who once called me by my first name, not Dad or Grandpa. The quiet in this place is loud, especially at night. Presses against me, and that's when the truth tends to show up. I don't think I have much time left to pretend anymore. I'm not telling this because I expect anyone to fix it. I know it can't be fixed. I'm telling it because it's heavy, and when something gets heavy enough, you either set it down or it breaks you. I'd like to set it down, even if only for a little while. When you're my age, you don't think in years anymore. You think in mornings. You wake up and you take a small inventory. Can I stand without the room spinning? Can I remember what day it is? Can I still taste my coffee? Some days, that's all the future you get. And lately, in those mornings, I keep coming back to the same thought. That I stayed in a life that never felt like mine. I didn't hate my life. That's the strange part. It wasn't some terrible thing I was trapped in. It was just not me. It was a series of choices that made sense at the time, that other people approved of, that looked good from the outside. I kept telling myself I would adjust. I kept telling myself it was normal to feel a little hollow. You can live a long time that way. In my 20s, I had a different idea of who I was supposed to be. I wanted simple things. I wanted to make things with my hands. I liked fixing broken radios, old furniture, anything that came apart and could go back together. I used to imagine a small workshop somewhere. Quiet place. I'd spend my days working on things that were worn but still worth saving. But I grew up in a family where that kind of life was seen as small. My father worked himself half to death at a company he didn't like, and he believed that was what a man did. He used to say, "You don't choose work, it chooses you." What he meant was you take what's offered and you don't complain. So when I was offered a position at a firm through a friend of his, I took it. Paid well. It sounded respectable. People nodded when I told them where I worked. That felt important at the time. I told myself I could do the workshop later. I got married not long after that. She was kind, practical. She liked plans and calendars and making sure everything had a place. I think she thought I was steadier than I really was. Or maybe she just needed someone who looked steady. We built a life together that was neat and orderly. 2 kids. A house with a lawn I mowed every Saturday. Holidays that followed the same patterns every year. Nothing was wrong with it. But it wasn't right either. I remember coming home from work one evening, still in my suit, standing in the kitchen while my wife stirred a pot of something on the stove. The kids were at the table, arguing over who had to finish their vegetables. And I had this strange thought that I was watching it all through a window. Like I was there but not inside it. I didn't say anything. I took off my jacket, loosened my tie, sat down. That's what you do. You don't question it. You just keep moving. That's how it starts. You don't wake up one day in the wrong life. You walk into it slowly, one reasonable step at a time. Years passed. I got promoted. We bought a bigger house. The kids grew. My wife and I talked mostly about schedules and bills and things that needed to be fixed. We were good at running a household together. We weren't very good at being 2 people anymore. I come home tired, sit in front of the television, and feel a kind of dull ache I couldn't name. I told myself it was just being an adult. Everyone feels this way. Everyone is tired. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think about that workshop. I could almost smell the sawdust. But I'd push the thought away. I had responsibilities. You don't throw those away for a feeling. I missed things. Not in a dramatic way. Just small things. School plays I arrived late to. Conversations I half listened to. My wife telling me something important while I nodded and thought about a meeting the next day. There was always tomorrow. My children grew up and moved out. They became their own people, and I wasn't always sure when that happened. I knew their names and their jobs, but not their worries. Not their private selves. Those get shared in the spaces between, and I was rarely in those spaces. My wife and I started to feel like polite strangers. We didn't fight. We didn't have big arguments. We just stopped reaching for each other. It's a quiet kind of ending. One day she told me she felt lonely even when I was sitting right next to her. I told her I was sorry. I meant it, but I didn't know how to change. I didn't know how to step out of the life I'd been walking in for decades. Then she got sick. It wasn't sudden. It was one of those illnesses that takes a little piece at a time. At first it was just doctor's appointments, then medications, then the way she moved more slowly through the house. I took care of her as best I could. We had more time together then than we'd had in years. We really talked about things we'd never said out loud. About regrets. About fears. About the way our life had turned out. One afternoon, she looked at me from the hospital bed and said, "Do you ever feel like we lived someone else's story?" I didn't know how to answer. She died not long after that. I held her hand when it happened. I was there, but there was so much I wished I'd been before. After the funeral, the house felt enormous. Every room echoed. I kept expecting to hear her in the kitchen, or the stairs, or calling my name. Instead, there was just this stillness. That's when it really hit me. Not just that she was gone, but that so much of my life was already gone too. All the chances I'd quietly put off. All the versions of me that never got to exist. I retired a year later. People congratulated me, told me I'd earned it. I sat at home in the middle of the day and didn't know what to do with myself. The job that had taken so much of me was suddenly just gone, and there wasn't much left underneath it. I tried to start that workshop, bought some tools, set up a bench in the garage, but my hands were slower. My eyes weren't what they used to be, and honestly, my heart wasn't in it the way it might have been 30 years earlier. Time doesn't wait for you to be ready. There are things I can never get back. Conversations I didn't have. Paths I didn't take. The man I might have been if I trusted that quiet voice inside me instead of everyone else's expectations. I don't say that with anger anymore, just sadness. If you're listening to this, you're probably younger than me. That's almost always true. And I won't tell you what to do with your life. I wouldn't know how. Everyone's story is different. I'll just tell you what it feels like to reach the end of one that never quite fit. It feels like wearing a coat that was tailored for someone else. Kept you warm. It did its job. But it was always a little too tight across the shoulders. A little too long in the sleeves. You never quite forgot it wasn't made for you. You get used to that discomfort. You stop noticing it. Until one day you take the coat off and realize how stiff you've become underneath it. I don't have many days left. I know that. I'm not afraid of dying so much as I'm afraid of what I didn't live. Sometimes I sit by the window and watch people walk by. Couples. Kids. Someone laughing into their phone. I wonder which of them is already telling themselves they'll do the thing they really want to do later. Later is a fragile word. If this meant something to you, if it stirred something you've been pushing aside, you don't have to tell anyone. You can just sit with it for a moment. That might be enough. As for me, I'll be here, in this small room with my boxes and my memories, trying to make peace with the life I had, even if it was never quite mine. That's all I can do now.